Hey, Teddy K here for the Best Buy blog, and in this video review we take a look at the new Google Pixel 7 Pro, Google's latest flagship smartphone that brings all the camera goodies and more. This is the Pixel 7 Pro. This is the Pixel 6 Pro. If they look alike, that is largely by design, because Google reimagined its design philosophy with this phone in 2021 and carried it over with this one in 2022. That's typically what the company does. Once it makes a new design, it kind of rolls with it after. We'll see for how long. But the point is that these two are very similar. And while they share almost the exact same dimensions, we're talking very slight differences. We're talking just millimeters here. It is enough, though, that the difference causes a bit of a problem. And the problem is more so with cases. So because Google moved the volume and power buttons down just enough, if you put a case for this phone onto this one, it'll fit. The problem is that it'll also squish the buttons too, and unfortunately that makes it unusable. So that was one thing that I kind of lamented as I was first trying to put a case from this phone onto this one. So it is a design point that kind of stands out right off the bat. But as you can see, there are other similarities. Everything else is pretty much in the same place, more or less. And the screen is the same, so it's the same exact display. There is there's a brightness increase here, so Google quantifies it about 25%. So peak brightness will increase. You'll notice it more so if you're out in bright daylight or in a really bright place. I think you'll notice that when the screen automatically brightens, it'll be a little bit more than the previous one was, which is always good. The fingerprint sensor. The maligned fingerprint sensor from the previous phone, this one here, is actually better this time around. I found it more responsive. It's not amazing, don't get me wrong, but it is more responsive this time. And I just felt like I didn't have to play with it or fiddle with it as much as I would previously with the other phone. Of course, if you don't want the fingerprint sensor and you want a different way to unlock your screen, you can use Face Unlock. So a new front camera now enables that feature, so you can just look and you unlock it. I personally am not a fan. I've tried it just to see how it works. It works fine, but I prefer the fingerprint sensor personally. You might prefer the Face Unlock, and now you've got it. Okay, so otherwise, what else is there? Google played up its Tensor G2 chipset, and it has reason to, more so because it feels that it has a marriage of hardware and software here that is very unique as far as Android phones go, or even any phone really. There's some truth to that, because there are some Pixel features here that I think they are exclusive to Pixel phones, but they're also unique in what they do. Some of them are calling related, right? And they're carryovers, like for example, call screen. So that will warn you of a potential spam or scam call that might come through. Direct my call, you're calling a business, you're going through all those automated menus. You want to see what those menus are beforehand. Direct my call can kind of do that for you without all the hassle. And then Hold for Me would have Google Assistant go on hold for you and then alert you when someone's actually able to speak with you. Those are really cool features. I like them, and I think they make phone calls very different. Call screen for me has been great. There have been a number of calls that I've just completely avoided, spam calls that I've had to avoid simply because call screen would tell me, this might be a suspected scam call. So, or if you think it is, you can just tap call screen where an automated message will then tell the caller, hey, this person is using call screen, can you just identify yourself, and then we'll take it from there. Now, as far as other features go, first I'll talk about a little bit about the performance, because I think I can just summarize that pretty easily. What you could do with this phone is very similar to what you could do with the 6 Pro. It's a little faster in this case, but not by a significant number. I mean, it's not like you're going to blaze through on this phone the way you couldn't on this phone. It's just not like that. The Tensor G2 to me is a chipset that's not really about speed. It's more about efficiency and enabling features that are very unique to the software that's running here. Yes, it is Android, but it's stock Android, and it's just Google stuff that's embedded in it. So, for example, I think a great example of this is Unblur. Now, you'll find this feature in Google Photos on the Pixel 7 Pro and the Pixel 7. What this does is it takes a photo that is let's say you have a photo that's got some blurriness to it, you weren't totally in focus. It'll take that photo and use its computation software to try and sharpen it for you. So as I'm showing you the example that I've got here of a photo that I took at a hockey game, you'll notice now for Jeff Carter, who is the player in front, he is a little bit sharper for sure in the photo that the copy that's come out after the feature, but you'll notice all the background is different too. The background is sharper. You can adjust that, so it is up to you. As far as the effect of the sharpening is up to you. You can always adjust that on your own. So this is an interesting feature. I found I did get mixed results there. It does depend on how blurry the photo is. So if you have a really blurry shot, it can't work miracles and all of a sudden make it look like it was completely in focus. It's just not going to do that. But if it's slightly out of focus, there's a very good chance that it's going to improve it significantly where you have a very good usable photo. So that's kind of, this photo is kind of an example of what I mean. Like it's just, there's a slight off. It's a little bit soft, and now you put it through the unblur process, and you have a sharper image that you can go with. So give it a try. I recommend it highly. I mean, just like Magic Eraser, which was introduced in the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, great feature. It's also in the Pixel 6a now, where if you want to get rid of someone or an object from a photo, you can do it. And Google continues to improve it, which leads me to believe that I think Unblur will probably get some improvements along the way too, and hopefully get expanded to other Pixel phones, and possibly maybe other Android phones too. We'll have to see. Of course, if we're talking about photos and cameras, we have to talk about how this one performs. And Pixel phones have always made their name on camera performance and output, and there's no exception here, even though much of the camera array here is very similar to the previous phone. So the one difference, actually two differences, are that the telephoto lens here has a 5x optical zoom as opposed to a 4x before, and also you have a macro mode that is embedded in the main wide camera. Move really close to a subject and you'll see it kick in with an icon in front, and then you just kind of line up your shot, focus, and you're good to go. For the telephoto lens, by expanding it to 5x, that means also you can go further with hybrid zoom as well. 20x was the limit before, 30x is the limit now. In my opinion, 10x is kind of that sweet spot. You go beyond that, you start to invite a lot of noise and pixelation into the shot, especially the darker the conditions that you're shooting in. Brighter days, you'll get some decent, okay shots, but I found 10x is kind of that sweet spot. 8 to 10 is that sweet spot where you can get a really usable shot for hybrid zoom. I'm not a fan of digital zoom personally, but I have to say I'm impressed with some of the results that I got from this. Now, generally speaking, when it comes to photo quality, as I'm showing you photos here, you'll see that shooting in low light and at night, not a problem for this phone. You do get a 50 megapixel sensor like you did before, only the pixel binning still applies here. So pixel binning takes 4 pixels, combines them into one larger pixel, which makes it easier for it to capture light, right? And that's why photos will come out in 12.5 megapixels as opposed to 50. There's no way to shoot in the full 50 megapixel resolution, which I think is an unfortunate thing. I'd like to see Google add that as a mode at least, so that we can, at least some of us can take advantage of the full resolution. For video, now if you're shooting video, cinematic blur is your new mode. Cinematic blur brings in that Hollywood kind of effect where you're adjusting focus and blur adjusts with it. So this is very much like the cinematic mode that we've already seen in the iPhone, and it works in a similar way. There are a couple limitations. I love that it shoots in 24 FPS. That's great, because obviously that's what movies and shows are shot with. It maxes out at 1080p, so if you're looking to shoot in 4K with that kind of effect, unfortunately that's not going to happen here. But it's an okay feature. Again, Google still has work to do, I think, on the video side to catch up with the likes of Apple and even Samsung, but it's getting there. You can still shoot in 4K at 30 or 60 frames per second, and the image stabilization, I think, is improved this time as well. So if you are shooting while you're moving, you'll find that it's a little steadier this time than it was before. Of course, no review of any Pixel phone can't be complete if we don't talk about battery life. This has been a bugaboo, if you will, for Pixel phones for some time. I didn't have a huge problem with battery life when I had the 6 Pro. I felt that it lasted me a full day and then some a lot of the times, and this really was pretty similar in that regard. I'm a mixed usage guy, so I'm using the phone for a lot of different things. Whether it's messaging, browsing, email, the usual stuff, and then of course photo editing, some streaming, things like that, right? So I'm using it for a lot of different things over a given day, and it's holding up pretty well. Now, that being said, most of the time I do have to charge it at some point before I go to bed. So that does tell you that battery life, while okay and respectable, is not incredible. And so if you're looking for a vast improvement from this to this as far as battery life goes, I haven't seen it. Maybe that can happen with some software updates, but so far, no. There's really a negligible difference, in my opinion, between these two phones when it comes to how long they last. So that sums it up for me with the Google Pixel 7 Pro. For the Best Buy blog, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.